Evening, everyone.
Evening.
How's Hello, Joffers. I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Not too bad.
Jolly good. Welcome, everybody, to our 100th DPiP.
Yeah. How did that happen?
No idea. I can't remember half of them, let alone last week's or any previous to that. I will say that I probably deserve a medal, though, because I've not missed one. Is there a special award I should get for not missing one? But it's our second actual official digital one online with all these fancy shenanigans going on. Big thank you to Dan from Big Orange Heart for being in the background pulling all the strings. I kind of envision him a bit like, I see him as a bit like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain pulling all the strings and stuff while we're talking. Those that don't know, Big Orange Heart, fantastic charity, support mental health and well-being for people in the WordPress community. So head over to bigorangeheart.org to find out more about them and what they do and support them. Really good to see like the communities coming together to support, especially in times of need like this. Really, really good to see there's help out there for people who will struggle with it all. Big thank you to our DPiP sponsors. We've got 20i, the hosting company. They're a new one. When did they? A couple of months ago, didn't they sign up?
Yeah, October.
Very much appreciated from them. We've got Marmalade, a local company, insurance company from Britain. They do car insurance for youngsters. And then we've got good old City Fibre, obviously rolling out their network across the city. Not sure if any of you is on it and using it. And then, of course, Compare the Market, the old BGL fans of ours, and help us out with the STEM Festival. So much appreciated to all our sponsors. So all we ask is that you share one of our tweets at the end of it, spread the love, and that's all there is to it. No fancy membership fees just yet.
All free forever.
All free. I will also mention WordFest, wordfest.live. It's a festival about WordPress. If you head over to wordfest.live, they've got sponsorship opportunities going on, and they've got a lineup for speakers that is ever growing. When's that starting? 22nd of January.
Yeah, so it's all online here. Obviously, we can't do real in-person meetups anymore and events.
No, for the time being. Although we've got that vaccine on the way, so fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Big welcome to all the people watching. Hello, Tristan. Nice to see you. Welcome back. The new people. Tony's not been back for a while. Nice to see you back, Tony. Sai's back. Hello, Sai. Then we've got Liz in the chat as well, who's there keeping order. Hi, Chris as well. Chris has come back again. Tonight's speakers, we have the lovely Hannah Smith. She's a WordPress developer from Bristol area. Going to do a talk about the ethics of cultural environment and stuff on the how to reduce environmental impact on digital technologies. And then also a very avid supporter of DPiP, who's a long-term member, probably deserved a gold star for his membership, who's Richard Wishart. Very, very active in the digital community, such a entrepreneur in himself and an advocate and for all things digital, especially plugging it for the youngsters. So we look forward to his talk about computer science in education, which we could all learn from, and we could definitely get some input from, especially for our Lego League thing that we do. So
yeah, absolutely,
it's always good. That, by the way, is going on. We're luckily being able to do it, but it will be obviously virtual. So if you want a team of up to 6 to 9 year olds, whether it's your son, your daughter, your school friends, your after school club, your neighbours friend, whatever, get a little team together, sign up at peterborough-stemfestival.co.uk/Lego, and then you can get involved in this year's Lego League Junior event. And then come May, June time next year, there'll be a little presentation day. Hopefully, maybe in person if we can see how it goes, but we'll see how it goes with this current situation. Anything else you want to add to that, free? Have I missed anything?
Not really, no. I was just looking in the chat. So Tristan asked what the topic of event number 1 was, and I can't really remember, to be honest. I think looking at the event on Meetup.
The very first one?
Yeah, the one that we had at the Eco Innovation Centre. So it looks like, I think it was the one where we all just sat around a table, and yeah.
Yeah, I think it was. It was in the conference room as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. So slightly different to kind of where
it's
we
a
are
bit more formal. Yeah, I guess the coffee shop definitely eases the place, eases it up a bit. It makes it a lot easier, I think.
Yeah,
a bit more welcoming. I mean, I think that was just a whiteboard and a load of theatre style seats, weren't it?
Yeah. But certainly we've tried everything, haven't we? So
not sure what our first talk was. I think the Dan, one of the founders, did a talk originally.
His company, The Way of the Web, was the sponsor. So
that's right. Yeah. How times have changed, and we've grown so quickly, which is always good. Shall we get our speakers on the screen and say hello? We'll have a bit of a chat.
Yeah, if they're ready.
Let's have Hannah. Hello, Hannah. Nice to see you.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Hannah. Welcome to your first DPiP.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Nice to virtually see you. Shame you can't come in the coffee shop and enjoy our little warm coffee shop environment, but as things are, needs must, and we're all digital. Never mind.
We have a warm home environment instead.
Absolutely. Can't beat that. And then there's Richard, Mr. Wishart. Hello, Mr. Wishart.
Hey, Richard. I think you're muted. There we are.
There he is.
Hello, everybody.
How you doing, Richard?
Yeah, good. I'm looking forward to this gold star, Andy.
Yeah, I think we should start rolling them out. I think I definitely deserve a medal for not missing a meetup. So I think long-term membership deserves a little gold badge of some sort. So we'll get Liz on that. Yes, that's an idea. Yes. How's everyone's month been? Any exciting things going on this month for you guys so far? Just getting on with things.
I've been out tree planting today. That was quite exciting. Yeah, I quite enjoyed that. Actually, it was nice. Nice to get out of the city and do something.
Oh, that's active. A good idea. Yeah.
Was that an organised thing, or just you on?
Kind of. So Phil Sturgeon, if you're on Twitter and you're interested in climate and tech stuff, you'll probably have heard of Phil. Phil is nearby to us, and he is working with a landowner to plant about 3,000 trees on the land over the winter. So me and my other half, we popped over there today. Wow. I have to say I'm aching.
Yeah. How many did you manage?
We did 30.
That's good.
But we were doing them in kind of long grass and brambled areas, and kind of, it was quite hard going, and very steep hills as well. I think that's why my legs are aching so much. Chopping up and down all these hills.
Yeah. We had something similar in Peterborough probably about 6 or 7 years ago with Peterborough Environment City Trust. They had a kind of a project to plant X number of trees over so many years, and they invited kind of the public just to kind of turn up and get involved. And yeah, that was I was aching the next day. So
exercise. What about you, Richard? Anything exciting this month?
No, same old. But today's been a bit of a change, obviously, with the big news, the vaccine for the pandemic.
Yeah,
I think that's absolutely staggering. That's really invention at its maximum, to actually the world getting together to invent something as complicated as that.
Absolutely,
and that's just amazing. I think it's
definitely a big achievement of this era. Definitely.
I think we could use the same resource to kind of focus on other issues now as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you get your engineers and your scientists, and you get the politicians to one side, move them out the way, and give the scientists and the engineers some headroom, you can do a lot of these. It's fantastic. It really is. It's mind-boggling when you look at the microbiology that goes on, the stuff that goes inside the vaccine and the way they're tackling it. It's just. Is
that also because the government thought they should start throwing thousands of pounds of cash at them, saying, "Quick, sort this out"?
I think it's bigger than that. I think it's amazing what they can do when they're actually given the headroom, and then and politicians with their not quite so truthful points, and a bit of point scoring and politics. How am I going to get elected the next time? Just get rid of that.
Just don't need that, do you?
Stuff.
What about you, Joffrey? Anything exciting in your month?
Not yet. You mean month as in
the last month since we last spoke? Well, yeah. Who knows what day it is? This last lockdown seemed less severe than this tier 2 now we're in. So I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I'm not really. Yeah, I think just kind of plodding by at the moment. Just keep your head down and get on with it.
Just get on with it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
well, I managed to take part in a police lineup.
Okay.
Not actually in it. I wasn't actually in it. I had to go and identify some people.
Okay.
Stupidly, silly of me, when the officer called, she said, we've got 2 suspects to identify. And I said, oh, which ones were they? I'm thinking, you don't really ask that if you're supposed to identify. You don't ask who they were.
They're not saying, well, you tell me.
Yeah. But what I didn't know is it's not like the old one-way mirror thing. That's what I went in there expecting. I was expecting a one-way mirror, but it's not like that these days. It's all video-based. But what I didn't know is if there's someone, say, with a tattoo on their cheek, they transfer it on all the suspects. So it's all even Harry. I didn't know they kept all them visual facial things in place, just so you couldn't go, oh, that's them. They definitely had something on their face or that tattoo there.
That's a really good idea.
Yes,
that's good.
But it is confusing because once you think, oh, I know who they are, and then you see all that lineup, and you think, oh, it was all of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, risky business.
It's quite exciting to take part in.
Yeah, very, very weird, but yeah, I was visioning. I saw there was a comedy once of someone getting interrogated in there, or some sketch show, and the guys in the suspects in a silhouette, and then I think it was like Smith and Jones. One of them walks in one of them puts the lamp on. It's like, oh! You see who it is. I was imagining that. So that was something different to do. Anyway, shall we crack on?
Yeah.
Are you ready, Hannah, to go first?
I'm ready.
It is all yours. As we said, yeah, if you go into on the main track on the right-hand side, you can pop your questions in the side there under the questions tab, and we'll answer them after Hannah's finished the talk. And thank you very much, and we'll hand you over now to Hannah, everyone.
Yeah, see you in a bit.
Enjoy.
Thank you. All right, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. Jonathan is someone that I've worked with. We work together at a company called High Rise Digital. So thank you so much, Jonathan, for inviting me to your community tonight to come and talk about this topic. I love a chatty comments feed as we go. So even if you don't have questions, if you have observations or light bulb moments or anything you want to share, I think it makes for a far more interesting talk. So please feel free to use the comments as we go. Right, I'm going to move you lot all over to my other screen so I can see my slides and I know what I'm doing. So tonight I'm going to talk to you about how to reduce the environmental impact of the digital technologies you are responsible for. That is a mouthful to get started with. And before I get into the sort of talk content, I'll just introduce myself to you. Let me just get that working. There we go. So my name is Hannah Smith. I'm a freelancer. I live in Bristol and I have a number of different skill sets. My main skill set, my main day job is that I'm a WordPress web developer. So I code with WordPress. So it's great to hear lots of WordPress things in the intro this evening. I also have a lot of experience in managing people, projects and processes. So I worked at the Environment Agency, whose head office is in Bristol, for about 7 years. So I have a lot of experience there. And I also do a lot of speaking and writing as well. So I work on my own these days as an independent freelancer. So it's speaking and writing kind of get me communicating and bring me some benefits, which are really nice. The other thing is I'm co-founder of a meetup based in Bristol called Green Tech Southwest. All our events are online at the moment. So if any of you are interested in this topic or you'd like to find out more, you'd all be very, very welcome. Another community that I'm very involved in is called the Climate Action Tech Community. I think I'll talk a bit more about them at the end if we have time. Okay, so that's me. What am I going to cover this evening then? So I've got about 30 minutes to talk through this topic. So I'm going to give you an overview of how digital tech or digital technologies can damage or impact the environment. And we're going to talk about that impact of manufacturing digital tech devices. We're also going to talk about the impact of using or accessing digital services as well, or surfing the web. It kind of really means the same thing these days. And littered throughout that, I will try and give you approaches that you might find useful to lessen the impact. I think when you define what something is, it's really useful to define what it isn't. So just a couple of things about what this talk isn't. So, my degree is in computer science, so I'm actually really looking forward to Richard's talk later. And I work as a developer these days. So this talk is definitely not hating on digital technologies, hating on the internet. I love digital technologies and the possibilities and solutions they bring. And let's face it, throughout lockdown, many of us would be in a much tougher place if we didn't have access to these digital technologies or to the internet. So this talk very much isn't about saying that these things are bad. This talk will very much be about talking about the waste and perhaps some of the side effects of what we're doing that we don't know about. The other thing this talk isn't is it's not statistically exact. And I'll get on to why that is throughout the talk. But it's very, very hard to estimate accurately the impact of these the things that we do on the environment. So, there are researchers out there. There's a very, very strong technical academic community producing lots of really amazing research around this. And I've used the most credible sources when I can, and they're all credited. If you're new to this topic, what I would definitely recommend is not taking any of the numbers I give you to heart too much. The numbers are being given to kind of give you a sense or a kind of size and shape of the problems that we're looking at, rather than a real specific statistic. So the statistics are there to guide you. And the other thing that this talk isn't is a comprehensive masterclass on this whole topic. We've only got 30 minutes this evening. So what I'm aiming to do is introduce you to this topic if you haven't heard of it if you haven't heard of it. So I'm expecting many of you will be thinking about this for the first time, and that's absolutely fine. So really the idea of this talk is to kind of give you a food for thought adventure. Take bits of it that you will. Maybe there'll be some bits that don't resonate with you, and that's absolutely fine. But really what I want to do through this talk is kind of just get us talking about this stuff. Okay, so let's get to it then. Let's start talking about what the impact is or the damage is from digital tech. My philosophy in life is very much that knowledge is power. If you are educated and knowledgeable about something, you can then choose to make a change or make an impact. So as I mentioned, this talk is very much about just trying to introduce you to this topic and empower you. Okay, so let's get to it then. So first thing, let's just talk about what the overall emissions are from ICT. So when I talk about emissions, I'm talking about predominantly carbon dioxide emissions. And I mean, this talk isn't going to kind of go into why carbon dioxide is bad, but there's lots and lots of science and evidence out there to show that carbon emissions are having a really big impact on our climate, and it is causing a climate crisis. So how much CO2 then is being produced by tech? So ICT, by the way, stands for Information Communications Technologies, and it's another way of saying digital, or these days the internet. So the total life cycle carbon footprint is approximately 730 million tons per year of CO2, and that makes it about approximately 1.4% of global carbon emissions. So if you're anything like me, you're like, okay, well, those are nice numbers. What on earth do those mean? How can we put those in context to understand what we're talking about here? So we certainly can. So the first way that I can put this into context for you is to say, well, if the internet was a country, it would actually be the 6th biggest polluter in the world. So that's a significant amount. This also puts the internet on a par, or the emissions from the internet on a par with the fuels burned by the aviation industry. So it's not the entire aviation industry, because we're not talking about the entire life cycle of planes, so building, manufacturing planes and disposing of them, but we are talking about the fuels burnt by the aviation industry. So you may have come across that comparison before, that people talk about the internet producing as much emissions as aviation. We talk a lot about the impact of aviation. We don't perhaps talk so much about the impact of digital. And that's okay, I think we're starting to. Okay, so there's a little bit of context for you there. So the impact of device manufacture, I'd like to start there. And one thing that is often not spoken about when we talk about the impact of digital is actually what it takes to produce our phones, our laptops, our TVs, the servers, etc., that are actually running and allowing us to access digital services. So let's talk a little bit about that. So manufacturing these devices, it literally costs the earth. 70 to 95% of the total pollution from digital devices come from manufacture. So actually just owning a digital device has a lot of what's called embodied carbon in it, which means that a lot of emissions were created in manufacturing those devices. And smartphones are actually the worst of all devices. They are estimated to produce 95% of the total pollution from their manufacture. One of the reasons why I say that manufacturing literally costs the earth is because a lot of our digital devices these days contain rare raw materials, such as rare earth minerals, which are very, very hard to find, and also generate an incredible amount of waste in mining and cleaning them up, ready for use. So I read a statistic that said for every 1 ton of rare earth mineral that's created, we are actually producing 2,000 tons of waste in order to produce that 1 ton. So there's a lot going on here that we don't often see. And on top of that, we have an increasing amount of e-waste being generated. So it was estimated that in 2019, 53.6 million metric tons of global e-waste was generated. And what we mean by e-waste is electronics that we're no longer using. Now, a lot of people would say, well, you know, we could just recycle our e-waste. But unfortunately, we're not really there in terms of the technology and the approaches that we need for recycling. So this photo is taken on a site called, I'm not sure I'm going to say this right, Abagloshi, which is in Ghana, which is in the news quite a lot. If you start to research around it, you'll see a lot. And actually, there is a mounting body of evidence to show that we are shipping e-waste to countries like Ghana for recycling. And actually, what happens is they get burnt in open air to try and burn away all the other materials and get to the stuff that we can recycle. So I don't think of this image as recycling. That's really not what I think of as recycling. But it is very much a reality, sadly so. Okay, so a bit of a horrible note to start on, a dark note to start on, but here we go. Let's have some hope. There are ways that you can reduce your impact from these devices. And they all come down to behaviors and asking yourself different questions. So, you know, now that you know that there is a significant environmental impact from having a device, such as a mobile phone, buying a new mobile phone, you can ask yourself, do we really need to upgrade to the latest device? And mobile phone companies love to offer you, you know, the latest deal, the latest upgrade. So do you really need to upgrade to that latest device, or can you make the devices that you have, your laptops, your phones, your TV, can you eke them out another year or two? Another thing you could think about is repairing or upgrading broken devices. A lot of people might have a phone or a tablet that starts to slow down. Actually, often just replacing the battery gives it a complete new lease of life. We have a tablet at home here. We've replaced the battery on it twice, thinking, all right, well, we'll give it a go and we'll see what happens. We've now had that tablet for 6 years and it continues to run okay. If you're interested in sort of repairing and upgrading of electronics, you might want to check out the Restart project, who hold fixing events. So they call them fixing parties. And those are events that they hold all throughout Europe. And there's many in the UK as well. And another thing you could think about with reducing your impact is whether you could buy second-hand devices or ethically made devices. So ethically made devices, you could have a look at a website called Ethical Consumer, which is an amazing resource of information about sustainable purchasing of all kinds. So ethically made, so for second-hand devices, you can have a look at the Ethical Consumer. For ethically made devices, have a look at Fairphone. So Fairphone are a company that are doing the manufacture and creation of devices in the right way. So up on the screen here, we have a tweet from a lady called Kate Rayworth. I don't know who of you here maybe have heard of her, but if any of you are interested in sustainability, you might have heard of something called donut economics. And Kate literally wrote the book on donut economics. And her book is very interesting as well. So she's advocating here for Fairphone, which is a great solution that many, many people don't know about. Okay, so we've talked there a bit about devices, and we've had a little look at the impact of devices. And really what we can say is try and have as few as possible, try and reuse what you have, and try and limit the amount of new stuff that you're getting if you can. Okay, so let's move on to the impact of using technology. And this is where a lot of people tend to focus their thoughts, their efforts, and it definitely is something worth focusing on. So let's just talk a little bit about what's going on here in terms of where the environmental impact's coming from. So in a nutshell, any digital service that we use requires electricity and requires a lot of electricity. It's estimated that about 3.6% of global electricity powers our devices, e.g. our phones, our laptops, servers, and powers internet usage as well. Now, this wouldn't be an issue. We wouldn't be worried about this if producing energy was impact-free. What I mean by impact-free is that it's not producing carbon emissions or damaging the environment in other ways. But unfortunately, energy production is not impact-free. Here's some information from the IEA, which is the International Energy Association, which is an organization based in America. We produce a lot of really, really, really interesting research. This data comes from them and is 2017 data, and shows us that in 2017, approximately 65% of the world's electricity came from fossil fuels. That will be a little bit less by now, but that's still a large amount. And I hope it goes without saying that if we're looking at our environmental impact, we definitely don't want to be using fossil fuels, and we really want to try and move away and transition away from those as much as possible. So a way you can lessen your impact is by running any technology that you have on renewable energy. So if you're working from home, I mean, I've worked at home for the last 5 years, and many of you, I suspect, will be working from home for the first time during the pandemic. A really simple and easy way that you can reduce your impact is by buying home or office supply, is buying a renewable energy supply for your home or office. And it used to be that those sorts of tariffs were more expensive, but actually these days they're often cheaper. And there's a link to that assertion there at the bottom from Money Saving Expert, which talks about different tariffs and talks about how you can get a really good deal on green energy. So not only is it better for the planet, but it's often cheaper too. I know from my own personal experience, the renewable energy tariff that we're on at home now, we use Octopus, is definitely cheaper than who we used to have before, which I think was EDF. And if you are someone working in tech and you are responsible for buying hosting or powering servers, or maybe even running a service center, again, look at getting those data centers powered by renewables, or choosing companies that are powering by renewables. So a great resource to look into is the Green Web Foundation. The Green Web Foundation holds a global list of what servers are being run on renewable energy. So it's a really, really great service to have a look at. But it definitely is important to say that renewable energy is not a panacea. So just by sticking all of our tech on renewable energy, we're not really going to completely solve the problem, and we could definitely reduce our impact further. So creating renewable energy still has an environmental impact, but it is less than fossil fuels. So I'm ever a pragmatist. I believe in taking steps in the right direction. If you can't get from where you want to be now to your overall end goal in one go, you have to take steps to get there. So transitioning away from fossil fuels to renewable energy is definitely a step in the right direction. But what we really should be doing is looking at our efficiencies first and reducing the overall amount of energy needed. And I'm going to talk quite a bit about that. I'm going to talk about the waste, this digital waste that we have that's going on around us, that's unseen, unknown of, but is definitely having an impact. So first we want to look to reduce, and then we want to make sure that the energy we're using has the lowest impact possible. And at the moment, that is renewable energy. Okay, so hopefully that kind of gives you a bit of an overview of the question around, or the high-level answer as to the impact of using digital services. Let's get into actually how we might quantify those emissions. So if you're liking what you're hearing and you're thinking, okay, yeah, this is maybe, excuse me, something, hang on, I need a drink. Sorry. Right. So if you're liking what you're hearing and you're thinking that you might want to look into this some more, and maybe, educate yourself and try and take some actions, we're going to go a little bit deeper now. So, and we're going to have a look at how we might quantify the carbon emissions. And I did say to you at the beginning of this talk that this is actually quite difficult. And I'm about to explain why this is quite difficult. Okay, so when we access a digital service, the first thing that we have is a data center, which is storing our data and prepares our data. So when we make a request to view an internet page, the data center fires into action and prepares all the data for you. The next thing it does is it sends the data to you over the network. And so your data is physically traveling from A, which is the data center, to B, your device. And your device could be any number of things, of course. It could be a laptop, a desktop, a mobile phone, a console, and a TV. So why is this difficult to quantify? Well, first up, data centers are not all created equal. So different data centers will be running at different levels of efficiency. So they'll have different, something called PUE, power usage efficiency scores, which kind of basically show how much energy is used to actually run the servers versus other overheads such as lighting, cooling, all this sort of stuff. So data centers themselves come in all different shapes and sizes, if you know what I mean. The network, so actually the way that your data travels to you, has huge variance in it. So data traveling to you over a wired connection uses a significantly less energy than information traveling to you wirelessly, e.g. through Wi-Fi. When you start to get to mobile networks, so actually transmitting data over 3G uses way more electricity than Wi-Fi. 4G is more than 3G, and 5G, well, okay, let's not go there about 5G. 5G uses a lot of energy. So we have the different modes of transport for that data to reach you, and that will use different amounts of energy. And as I mentioned, the distance that your data has to travel as well will all have an impact. And lastly, your device itself. So a mobile phone will use loads less data. Use loads less energy than, say, your TV. And TVs are very, very power hungry. So there's a lot of variation going on here. It's very, very complicated. That's a bit complicated. And to be able to calculate this stuff, you have to make a lot of assumptions about how the data is being transmitted, what it's being transmitted to, and then also what the content is as well. So I'm not going to kind of go into how you might start calculating that, because we've only got 30 minutes this evening. But what I would like to do is show you a few tools that you might use to give you an idea. And these are all intended to be tools that you might use just to kind of get you going on this topic. So the first one I'd like to introduce you to is called the Website Carbon Calculator. And you can visit that at websitecarbon.com. And you can put a URL, any URL for any website, including pages within that website. You can hit the calculate button, and it will give you a very nice high-level summary of what's going on that website. So it'll give you a kind of rating. It will tell you how much CO2 is estimated to be used or emitted every time someone visits your site. And it will also do a search to see what hosting your site is being served from. So, I mentioned the Green Web Foundation a few slides back. Actually, what the Website Carbon Calculator does is it interfaces with the Green Web Foundation's API to figure out what energy your hosting is running on. So this is an absolutely brilliant tool to get you going, and just to kind of tell you how much of a problem you may or may not have. And it gives you a few pointers of things you could do. If you're up for a bit more detail, EcoGrader is another tool that gives you a little bit more information. And then, of course, if you're a developer, you might well be familiar with things like Google Page Speeds or Lighthouse. And those are very useful tools for helping you. And essentially, if you're a developer and you're looking at trying to reduce the impact of the websites that you're creating, what you really want to be looking at is file size. We'll come on to file size in a few slides' time. Okay, so there's some really great tools. There's more out there, but I don't have time to go through all the tools with you. But I do think EcoGrader and the Website Carbon Calculator are fantastic tools to get you going. And hopefully, I can't actually see all the comments over here on my screen, but I'm hoping some of you might be running some websites that you use through those tools and telling us what results you're finding and any thoughts you have on that. Okay, so I have a few minutes left. I'm going to just talk through some other approaches that you might find useful to lessen the impact. So as consumers and as developers or people working in digital, one of the key things that we can do to reduce the demand, the amount of data that we're sending around, is to look at our data habits. Because if we can send less data around, we can use less electricity. Now, I can't stress strongly enough that I am a pragmatist, and what I want to get across in this talk is not that data is bad, or that data shouldn't be used, or that we should stop doing these things. What I want to get across to you is that there is a lot of waste going on. So we're sending lots of data around that we really don't need, and I'll talk a bit more about that on the next slide. But what I'm saying to you is not don't do your job, or don't create data if you need it and it adds value. What I am saying to you is seek out and eliminate that data which is being created or transferred that isn't adding value. And so what I mean by that is, oh, hang on, no, I've moved my slides around. So what I mean by that is that we are only storing and creating data we need. Because a very astonishing fact I found out recently is that businesses typically only analyze 10% of data that they collect. And that comes from a company called LucidWorks, who've done a really interesting report about dark data. So that's this data that we collect, but that we don't use. And there's huge amounts of it. I work as a web developer, and I tend to work with marketing departments. And marketing departments love analytics. So one thing that we could consider is, do we need to be adding all these analytics to our digital services? Do we need as many backups of things as that we keep, old versions that we keep? Now, please keep the backups that you need, but just think about whether you need the really old backups. And of course, old versions of stuff. Another thing that you could do to reduce data demand is consider perhaps saving locally, so to a hard drive rather than to the cloud. And also perhaps think about your social media and media streaming habits as well. So an absolutely fascinating book on this is called Worldwide Waste by Jerry McGovern. Jerry actually is coming to speak at my Green Tech Southwest meetup on the 10th of December. So that's a week on Thursday. As I mentioned at the beginning, you're all very welcome to attend. Okay, a couple more slides and then we'll be done. So just a couple of points specifically to talk to any developers that are here. One of the things that you can do is make efficient software, which is what we're all trying to do anyway. So to really reduce emissions, we only want to serve the bytes of data that matter. And so a really good lens to look at is page weight. So how many kilobytes of data are you sending, or maybe even megabytes of data? How many bytes are you sending to load pages? And then think about, optimizing, compressing, and reducing that as much as you possibly can. And there's some wonderful side benefits to doing that as well. For anyone that is really interested in this and would think of themselves as a software engineer, I highly recommend the website principles.green, which has a summary of 8 principles that you can consider to do sustainable software engineering. So really, really worth a look. I don't know, maybe we have some designers in the room, but one thing that designers can do is to design services that allow their users to complete their goal quickly. So essentially, the summarized version of this is, don't make your users click around to find stuff that they're looking for, because that's loading pages unnecessarily. So you want good information architecture, good content, and good search. You use search as well. Search actually doesn't use all that much energy. There's a lot of research out there to say that search is quite sustainable, or search uses a smaller amount of energy. And there's a whole field called sustainable UX, if you're interested in that. Okay, and if you are interested in design, I highly recommend this book. This is by a chap called Tim Frick, and Tim's company is actually behind EcoGrader, which is one of the tools I showed you earlier. It's a really, really good book. You can also get an online version too. Okay, so that's it. That was a bit of a whistle-stop tour of looking at the environmental impact of digital. I'm just going to summarize for you, and then we can go to questions. Okay, so tech is a significant cause of environmental impact. And that's okay, in my opinion. That's okay if the tech is serving a purpose and is enriching lives and making things better for people. But it's, in my opinion, not really okay when it's wasteful and we're using energy and we're using stuff when we really aren't adding value anywhere. So we can all make an enormous difference today, right now, by being mindful of the devices that are already out there and making use of them. Purchasing renewable energy, culling data that we won't make use of, and educating ourselves and asking questions. This is quite a new field at the moment. So the more people asking questions, the more people asking suppliers about, where their energy comes from and what they're doing, the more we can do to all move together and make a difference. And just to sign off, being greener is not... It is a thing in itself, but there are so many co-benefits for being greener. There's all sorts of tasty things. So by being greener, you'll often find that you will reduce costs. You'll find that performance and speed is improved. Things are easier to find, which is a great benefit. And accessibility can be improved as well. So there's lots and lots of reasons to think about the impact of the digital technologies you're responsible for. There's a whole bunch of other resources here, but I won't go into those now. I've made my slides available for you. For anyone that's on Twitter, there's a link in there. Hopefully, if I've done TweetDeck right, that should have gone out at, quarter to 8. So fingers crossed I did that right. You can have a look through the slides and follow all the links there. But yeah, that's me done. I think I might be a minute over. Apologies for that. But really happy to move on to questions now.
Thank you, Hannah. Very enlightening.
We'll let you off for that 1 minute over.
Yeah, sorry.
How dare you? How dare you? Yes, we have some questions.
Got loads of questions.
Awesome. That's really good to hear, because I think this is a topic that, we can ask lots of questions about.
Yeah.
For sure.
You were saying at the start about the big boys offsetting their recyclables to Ghana and then it not being followed through with the proper recycling procedure. Is that a way of them being not accountable for it? And who is making them accountable for it? Or is it just a case of them sweeping it under the carpet, palm it off to someone else? We don't care what you do with it. Why aren't the big players being held responsible for their carbon footprint? And I've noticed a lot more are now doing it, like BMW. A lot of the car manufacturers are now plugging their carbon offset. But is it always down to the consumer? Is there a governing body that is saying, look, to these manufacturers, look, your processing is too environmentally impacting. What are you doing to solve it?
Well, that's a really great question. I mean, I think this problem is still relatively new. And politicians are waking up to it. So there's a lot of work going on at the EU level. Who knows whether that will help or hinder us over here in the UK.
We don't listen to them anymore, apparently.
I'm not going to say anything. But there is a lot of really great stuff happening at the EU level. So there's something called planned obsolescence, which is a bit of a technical term, where we have companies. I mean, I can't comment on car companies. I don't know much about that. Tech is something I know more about. We have companies like Apple who do this thing called planned obsolescence. So by design, what they're doing is designing devices that deliberately can't be fixed. If you buy an Apple device these days, you have to have like hundreds of cables to go with it. None of them is standard. They only work for your Apple.
Tony asked that earlier.
Yeah, that is all part of this thing called planned obsolescence. There was actually a really, really positive EU vote last week on this very, very topic, where the EU are actually starting to look at making this sort of stuff law to crack down on this problem. So there's a lot of promising work happening.
So it's just taking up. It's just becoming a new thing now. Because I kind of thinking someone like Apple should know this already. They should know this. As Tony says, why are they deliberately slowing up MacBooks to make you forced to buy the next tech? Why are they deliberately?
Why do you think? It's money. Profit. It's profit.
Why didn't someone sooner say, hang on a minute, you can't do that?
And there are some really, really great organisations doing that. So if you feel passionate about this topic, I mentioned the Restart project. There's another one called repair.eu, which is a campaigning organisation trying to kind of raise this issue. But yeah, the big players, money is what they care about.
It's just greed, good old greed.
I really like the idea of that, like repairing your device events.
Thought you'd like that, Jonathan,
Because I've actually got my last handset, because I only just upgraded kind of 2 months ago. So I tried to take the back off this phone. I'm going to hold it up. It's got glass all over it, so you can kind of see the.
Yeah.
So that's
good effort. Did you use a hammer?
So I heated it up, followed all the YouTube videos, got it all nice and kind of all the adhesive all soft. As soon as you put any kind of pressure on it, the whole thing just cracks.
You can say that about a lot about the stuff we own. A lot of the appliances are throwaway, aren't they? Because you can get microwaves for 20 quid now. You can get washing machines are cheap. It's the whole fix it thing is going. It's very such a bad thing, really. So hopefully those big players.
They say like if you've got a device like a washing machine from the 70s, it'll still be going.
Yeah, probably
but then if you buy something kind of 3 years ago, it's probably on its way out. So.
Yeah, but there are companies out there. So if you are buying these new appliances, and sometimes we have to, like I had to buy a new washing machine recently, sometimes you have to, but there are certain companies out there that are much better. I can't, at making fixable devices. I can't remember who our washing machine was by, but we bought a kitchen gadget recently, and we did quite a bit of research, and Dulit are really, really good for making repairable devices, as a Magimix as well.
Okay.
They cost a bit more, but they don't break.
Yeah.
Or if they do, they're fixable.
Yeah.
So they are out there. It's just that we've got to put a lot of effort into finding them.
It's also consumers' greed to always have the latest tech. I mean, why would someone want an iPhone 12 when it does exactly the same as an iPhone 11, but it's the Apple and those big players selling you it? You have to have it. You need it. Otherwise,
have you got an iPhone 12 yet, Andy?
No. I went for the next one. I went for an SE because it was slowing down, and I wasn't. The battery life was just going. I know you said about replacing batteries. Didn't think at the time. I'm guilty of that, and I've just Googled my website footprint, and it just says it's dirtier than 54%. So I feel filthy and embarrassed. It's not even that big a website.
We did the DPiP website. That was 64%. So
that's worse than mine.
I don't want you guys to feel bad. Like, please don't feel bad, because this is new stuff. Like, we're learning about this, at the moment we're learning about it, and this is why I'm talking about this.
Maybe that's
I think you should feel bad if you now don't do anything at all. If you've now had your eyes open and you're aware, and you choose to do absolutely nothing and not even take an easy action, maybe then you should feel bad. But right at this point, I don't think you should feel bad. You're learning and educating yourself.
You're aware of it. Like you do the recycling now, 2 bins, one for recycling, one for, and you consciously now picking up the boxes and that's recycling, that's this. So hopefully, more people will take it on.
This is why I love to do these talks, because people don't know about this stuff, and you only need to give a little prompt in a few different directions, and people are like, "Oh my goodness, I had no idea." Yeah,
let's just hope the big players get a big kick at the bum then and get their act together. But like you say, money before the environment, I guess, every time.
It needs consumers like us. Oh, hello, my dog's come to say hi. It needs consumers like us to put pressure and ask questions. That's the thing. You can ask questions and make a big impact that way. But you can't do that unless you know to ask the question.
Yeah, true. So I'll lead to your question then, Jonathan, by saying that if you go for a smaller online provider with a proactive carbon policy, are you getting a lesser service? Are you missing out on something because they're not offering what the fully carbon guzzling players do? Is it a bad thing or is it a case of shopping around?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. I'm definitely seeing more hosting providers getting better at this stuff. I mean, I think the reality, I'll talk about my own experience with looking for WordPress hosting. So I would love all my clients to use a hosting platform called WP Engine, because for me, that is the Rolls Royce of WordPress managed hosting. It's awesome. It's really, really good. But they don't run on renewable energy, and they have zero environmental policy. And they're expensive. So there are alternatives, but none of them do, if I'm honest, quite offer the same service as WP Engine. So what I do is every time I have a client, they're probably sick of me by now. Every time I have a client, every time I'm switching their hosting, I will re-email their sales department and go, "Hey, me again. Hi. Have you changed any of your policies yet? Because I have this great client, we're talking about X thousand pounds a year. Oh, no, you haven't changed your policy. Okay, you're not getting our business then."
Oh, that's clever. Your loss. See you later.
Exactly. And that's what I mean by that consumer pressure.
Are you doing that publicly? That kind of
I haven't
sideways shaming, but
a little bit. I've done it a few times.
Angry tweet.
I'm not sure how I feel about that. Putting my head above the parapet that publicly, it can be a bit scary as a woman in tech. So I'm happy just to talk directly to sales teams.
Yeah.
Tristan, I'm on Cloudways and mine's 54% dirty, so I might have to have words with him. see what
Yeah.
they're up to.
Definitely. Please do.
Jonathan, you had questions.
Well, we've got a comment from Dan. Comment from Dan on the screen.
Oh yeah, Dan. Yeah, lots of WordPress will recognise the serving capacity required to deliver a global event. Chose to offset carbon footprint.
Well done, Dan. I love Ecology. Ecology is a Bristol-based company, and basically you can, as a subscription service, plant trees. So we use it for our Green Tech Southwest meetup. And so if anyone really enjoyed the meetup, we say you can plant some trees in our forest as a thank you. So instead of buying us a pint or a coffee or something, you can put some trees in there. So we've got about 650 now.
Wow.
Great.
Nice.
It's a really lovely company. You should definitely check them out if you're into that kind of thing.
Like you say, I for one didn't know about it. I saw these car manufacturers saying we're offsetting our carbon footprint. I'm thinking, what? Why? What are you on about? Surely you don't produce any waste. But now you've said about the digital waste, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Had no idea, really. No idea. Yeah.
It's all hidden away from us, isn't it? Because companies
shipped off to Ghana so they can burn it and hide it ways, by the sound of it. Very strange.
Yeah.
Very strange. Jonathan, at home replacing your LED bulbs. Do you think Jonathan thinks LED bulbs don't last as long as the old filaments?
Yeah.
Is that a bad thing?
This is just me kind of conspiracy theory.
Conspiracy theory.
I'm sure I'm buying more and more LED bulbs than I ever did filament bulbs.
They are more efficient, aren't they? Everyone's got an LED.
Yeah, they're more efficient apparently, but yeah, I don't know how the manufacture of it kind of weighs up.
I really wouldn't know. I couldn't comment on that. I've never thought.
I guess it's one of those things people are now being aware of. Like we used to have the old filament bulb. Now we're all going, oh, let's go LED. Let's get rid of them bright halogen ones in the roof type stuff. So again, like this, it's becoming a slow progress of people becoming aware of it in order to start changing things. So it might take some time, but I guess we'll get there in the end.
Yeah,
I bet a quick Google would answer that question, Jonathan.
Yeah,
I think Google would know. That's one thing that actually isn't too hard to calculate.
Yeah,
unlike a lot of this stuff. Yeah, I think we could find a good answer for that.
And there is always a case of anything that's good for you is more expensive.
It's just not true.
Isn't it?
No, I do not buy that at all. Not when it comes to environmental progress. No, actually, there is green energy. A good example. Renewable energy in your home is actually cheaper now.
Didn't it used to be more expensive?
It did, yeah. But the price is falling and falling. I heard a podcast the other day where someone was saying that there's this misconception that when you buy a AAA rated fridge, so AAA being, the most energy efficient possible, people will think that they're paying more for that energy efficiency. But actually the reality is it's not true. You're not paying more. They're just better. They're just better products. So I politely challenge your view there, Andy.
Okay. I'm thinking like when you go to buy healthier food is more expensive as well as the you always get deals on filthy chips than you do over a healthy Caesar salad in the supermarket. So those things are need some change as well.
It's true, but I guess it depends what you think about as the overall cost. So if you think about the cost to your health over a long term of eating those things, how much more is it going to cost you later down the line from having those? What we pay in money is not always the true cost of things. And I think it really rings true with all this digital tech stuff. What we pay for internet or for our devices is really not the true cost of something by a long stretch. If you think a bit beyond, and that's not easy, but yeah. But yeah, I do know what you mean.
Interesting. John has said about he saw a similar presentation from a front-end developer on gov.uk highlighting green impact of optimizing the size of images. So a practical thing to do is reduce the data size in our website, so image size. Now, this is something that I found recently. I kind of took over a site that an agency had done, and I don't know whether they were relying on WordPress to rescale the images down for them, but front end, you see this nice little small image. You right click save image. It's a 240 meg, 3000 by 3000 image. And I'm thinking, why is that there? Should we be making them? Well, for this, I've started to make them manually. I'm now trimming them in Photoshop to a size I think is more optimal. But in a WordPress sense, how much should we rely on the WordPress to do it for us? Is it lazy to just go, there's the file, do what you like with it? I know there's settings in WordPress, but some of them are a bit beyond me, to be honest. But
yeah, it's a really great question. I think it needs both sides. So I think the developer has a responsibility to try and serve up the right sized image. And there's lots and lots of things that WordPress do in the background. So every time you upload an image to WordPress, it creates what these things called thumbnails, which are different sized versions of your file of the same image. And it will create by default, I think it's like a thumbnail, medium and large version of the image. If you're a developer, you can make use of those very, very easily. But custom off-the-shelf themes maybe don't. And there's a whole bunch of plugins that you can put in to help as well. So Smush is one of my favorites. Like Smush, but it doesn't do all.
As well.
Insanity is a great one, Jonathan. Yeah, it's a really good one. Short Pixel's another one you can use. There's lots of them out there. So I think the developers can do some stuff, but I also think the developers need to educate the admins as to what they're doing as well.
Because obviously you're going to hand it over to the clients, aren't you?
Yeah, and we can put things in place to stop them being able to upload anything over a certain file size or dimensions. So we can put those restrictions in place for them. If they don't take the kind of softly educated kind of approach, then force them.
Yeah, I've got. I was sort of telling the girls that are updating this site what sort of size to do the images, and then I start to explain resolution. And then, of course, resolution gets a bit confusing because it could mean DPI and it could mean the size and width of the image as well. So they were kind of a bit confused. So I was in the end giving them templates and saying, look, you resized this, job done, everything's good. So
that's it.
So yeah, so definitely reduce the size of your image size to help with your carbon footprint. Definitely.
Media in general is a really, really good one to pay attention to. We didn't talk about videos in the talk tonight because we only had half an hour, but video is a phenomenal file size.
Yeah, someone said that. I think it was Tony again. He said about that we are going more into video, adverts, media. Yeah. So it's using a lot more, isn't it now? So
yeah,
I guess we go back to the big players like Facebook, Instagram that need to then do something at their end with it all.
Well, we as consumers can do something at our end too. So if you are a user of social media, you can have a look at your settings and just turn off the autoplay of any videos that you've got. So you can do that on Facebook, you can do it on LinkedIn, you can do it on Twitter. So you can still play the video, but like you scroll through
and automatically
and all the videos playing.
Annoying.
It does my head in too. I hate it.
Yeah.
You can just go in and turn that off by default and save loads and loads of files from doing that. To be honest, I think that social media platforms should have it off by default and you can turn it on.
Yeah.
But okay.
That'll be that easy today.
No, not without pressure. Not without pressure from people like us.
How much do you reckon that spam email costs in an environmental side then? That's because that's like obviously your spammy letters through the post. All the spam that's going around, that must be putting a huge amount of carbon out there, and it's uncontrollable in a way.
It really, really is. It really, really is. So there have been some articles published. I think it was in the Guardian quite recent. Well, I say recently. Who knows what was recent and what wasn't?
Yeah, no idea. Yeah, no idea.
Last year, actually, this article. But they did a sort of an article about the cost of sending emails, and it was massively overestimated. There is definitely an impact from it, but it's not anything like what the Guardian reported on.
Right.
So again, like practical things that we can do is unsubscribe from newsletters. we have that option. GDPR helped us out there. Hit subscribe, unsubscribe, and you can take action that way and have a nicer inbox. But there is an impact for sure. Pointless, wasteful emails.
Yes,
get rid of them.
There is one newsletter I did unsubscribe, but it keeps coming back. I don't think their unsubscribe button works. I think that's
It's not a DPiP one, is it?
No, I unsubscribed from them for years ago.
I think we ever sent one, did we?
No, I don't think we did. Tony says, are cloud services and data backups worse than local?
Yes, because you have to send that data over the internet to someone, and that uses energy. So they are worse in that sense. The other thing about cloud services is that the servers will typically be running most of the time. So your data is accessible on demand. And of course, those servers require energy. Just getting out from my desk here, like a hard drive. It's a local way of storing your energy. Of storing your data. Yeah. So I plug that into my laptop. It's not sending information across the wire. Well, I mean, it is a wire, but I mean, it's that long.
You're not going over.
And it's off. So when I don't need the data, it's switched off and it's not using energy.
But then how
do you have more faith in the online services than?
Yeah. What if that corrupts? What if it breaks? What if it corrupts? What if you accidentally spill your coffee on it?
Sure.
We're now a society of online cloud storage, whether we like it or not, because everything gets backed up whether we want it to or not. And I've got physical media as well as cloud media, but should anything happen to these, then panic.
Absolutely.
We're paranoid about it.
We have to be really pragmatic about this stuff. If that is a genuine concern and a genuine risk, then cloud is good. Cloud could help. But in my instance, I'm happy that this hard drive here does the job that I need. I'm cool with that. So that's a choice that I can make. So
I guess it's down to your user preference, isn't it, and how you work, I suppose.
And what you need, I can't stress strongly enough, because I think it can be really easily misinterpreted, this stuff. Like, if you have a need, tech is amazing. Use it. Awesome. Great. It's what it's here for. But don't do stuff unnecessarily if you can avoid it. So
hopefully the cloud services will get their act together and start being a bit more environmentally wise.
That would be nice. Yeah.
Chris says we used to pay to recycle bottles. Perhaps we should charge manufacturers a waste tax and use it to encourage consumers to recycle.
Wouldn't that be great? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we could do to make these tech companies more responsible for what they're doing, and to make them bear the cost of what they're actually producing. Because at the moment, the people that bear the cost are the most vulnerable people in our global society. They're the ones that actually pay.
Possible danger for that is like the sugar tax. The manufacturers get put on the sugar tax, but then they just say, we'll pass it on to you anyway. So we end up paying more to cover the sugar tax. Again,
and the luxury items like tech, I think we could probably stomach that.
Yeah.
I
know a lot of Europe have this recycling incentive. They actually get money back, don't you, for taking your bottles into the supermarkets and popping them in the machine. So
I think some Iceland's over here do that now.
Are they? Again, we're late to the party, because it seems like Europe have had it way longer than we have.
The Scandi countries do pretty well. But I mean, wouldn't that be great? I think that's a great question from Chris, and there's definitely something in that, I think.
It's an idea there. Dragon's Den, Chris. Dragon's Den. I want 30% of the business. Any more questions?
Just having a look through the chat, I think.
Yes, Tony said he's had a solid state for a while. We need to have a rethink. 10 to 10 web pages on white background. Does it say power?
Yeah, I wonder if dark mode kind of.
Oh, that's an idea.
Has much of a positive effect on energy savings.
It does. It just depends on which type of screen you have. I still haven't completely got my head around what my screens actually are at home. But there's kind of two main ways of screens working. LCD.
LCD, yeah.
LCD, and there's the
Think.
other one, and I can't remember what it is off the top
I
of
don't
my
know.
head. But
Anyone in the
one works better in dark mode, and one works better in light mode. So it's not necessarily a case of saying everything is, better in dark mode. It really depends on your device and how it generates black and white pixels.
I see. Well, there we are. Guess everyone, we should do our bit.
There's
Delete all your social media.
And your life will be better for it anyway.
Yes, correct as well. Excellent. Well, thank you for that, Hannah. Thank you for
having me.
giving us that talk. Do stick around. We'll have a probably chat at the end, and we shall now move on to our next speaker, Mr. Wishart. Wherever he is, there he is.
There he is.
Hello, Mr. Wishart. He's muted. No, you're muted, Richard. There's a button somewhere.
No, it's still not.
Hurry up, Richard. Joffrey will have to sing a song. You see a button at the bottom of the window? You have to fix the DPiP site then, Jonathan.
Can you hear me now?
There he is. Hello, sir.
Hello. Yeah, sorry.
With so many tabs and windows open.
It's crazy stuff. Yeah, let me get my presentation up.
All the tabs. Okay, again, post your questions in the questions tab in the live chat. I think you just flick the switch and type away. That way, down in the background, we're able to pick them up and paste them to us. And are you all set to go, Richard?
Yeah, if you can hear me and if you can see my screen, I'm good.
Perfect.
Yeah,
right, everyone, we'll hand you over to Richard.
Yeah, see you in a bit.
See you in a bit.
That was a very kind introduction. I'm going to cover, what I'm looking to cover this time is computer science and education. So it's not really, you probably know me from my day job in DPiP, which I've spoken about a couple of times, but this is not really about my day job. I have been involved in computing all my career, but I really wanted to talk about the latter part of my career, which is really happened in two ways. One was that I became I ran coder dojos and code clubs in libraries, and I've been doing that for about 4 or 5 years. And when we came to lockdown, the library in Peterborough, we've gone online, completely remote. So every Saturday we do a coder dojo, and it's been really successful. We've been doing it for 2 terms now online. And having done that, I then got a call saying, would you like to help us in education? So at 65, I'm now in mainstream education, and I'm what they call a computer science subject matter expert. And I'm helping primary school teachers across Norfolk. I've got 150 schools in Norfolk that I'm helping to become computer science teachers and teach a new education curriculum across Key Stage 1 to Key Stage 4. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is really that education part. But I think before I get into the education, I need to really set the context, and it sort of aligns quite well with what Hannah was saying about our industry. And what I'd like to just do is just talk a bit about our industry, a bit about that journey and how it's moving, but also the fact that it's changing very, very quickly. And of course, if something's changing very, very quickly, how do you educate people? So school is Key Stage 1 to 4, then A levels. You've probably got 14 years. If you've got an industry that changes every year, that's a major shift of infrastructure content every 2 years. How can you teach people across primary school and secondary school? And what they teach them is going to still be relevant when they actually get into work. So the pace of change is really important. So here we have some 3D objects that I printed out at the bottom. This is me running one of my Coda Dojos, and the Coda Dojo symbol as well. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of context first. And this is probably taking you further back than you thought. I was listening this week to a fantastic BBC program, a radio program called Start the Week. And they were talking about the dawn of invention. So when do you think people started thinking in a logical way? Well, it actually started about 100,000 years ago. 70 to 100,000 is what they say. And the difference that happened there is we then started talking in a logical sense, where we were able to use a sort of algorithm: if X and Y, then Z. So that was the first time really we as a species started to think in a logical way that could apply itself in a technology, eventually to technology. So let me just explain that. If X and Y, then Z. So it could be a caveman 70,000 years ago. He took a bone out of a bird, a hollow bone, made a hole in the top, and hey, it's a flute. So suddenly if X, I blow into the tube, and Y, I have a finger over the hole, then it makes a sound. So suddenly we had this logic that we're now starting to use. And this was also tied, so it's pattern matching. It was also tied as well to the empathy circuit, which again developed in our brains about that time, where, okay, I'm blowing the whistle and I'm getting a nice tune, so I'm making other people happy. So suddenly we had these two things that happened: the logic, the pattern matching, and the empathy circuit. We were starting to do systemizing mechanisms. And then it wasn't just invention, we were actually having generative invention. So it wasn't just inventing one thing, it was inventing lots of things, one on top of the other in a very cumulative way. I just think today is absolutely a spot on day, because today the human race invented a COVID vaccine, and we did it in 9 months. That sort of shows you the level we've now got to. But you can see this all started about 100,000 years ago. If we sort of bring ourselves a little bit more up to date, but not quite yet, let's go to a very famous day in my history, which was the 3rd of October 1972. So that was the day that I went to university. I went to Edinburgh University, and I was studying engineering science. Prior to the 3rd of October 1972, I had never seen a computer before in my life. There was no computers at school. There was no businesses that used computers. Nobody knew anything about computing whatsoever. It just didn't exist. On the 3rd of October 1972, I was given my first project in my first lecture at university, and I wrote and run my first program. So it was on punch cards, and I was using a program at that stage called IMP. So these punch cards, I had to sit down at a fancy machine, I had to punch the holes, I had to sort the cards into the right order. I had to get in the bus and go down to the centre of Edinburgh to the data centre. I had to hand the cards in. The guy said, "Oh yeah, that's very good, thank you very much." I went back the next day. There was no emails or anything, so I went back the next day, and he said, "Oh, sorry, one of your 6 cards was incorrectly typed. There's a bug on it, so you need to redo them all again." So I redid them all again, handed them back in, ran them. I went back the next day to see whether they'd run. So it took me 48 hours to run 6 lines of code. So that's where I started from. And that wasn't common. People didn't really understand computing. I had a computer science part of my engineering degree. So on the very first day, I met my first computer. I didn't, as cards, I never actually saw the computer itself. I only saw the cards that I submitted to it. And then following on from that, 2 big developments. The most significant one was 1981, which was the first IBM PC. That was a major step forward. And then the other bit that happened a little bit later was the World Wide Web. So that was in 1990. Now, interestingly, I put a little in brackets after that, 1982, because actually that was the date that I got involved in the internet and the World Wide Web, because I was in the Air Force during the Falklands War, and I was in charge of the command and control system. And we were using the World Wide Web and Internet 8 years before it became public knowledge. So that was my sort of little bit of claim to fame. If we now move on quite rapidly, bear in mind we're going through lots and lots of evolution as we move through technology. So cards, data prep, web online or mainframe online, PCs, client server, cloud, extreme edge as we're now moving to. It's a whole lot of stuff happening. If we move to now, so this is today, 100th anniversary of DPiP. Here's me in the bottom left. I would like to say I consider myself to be the connected human. So I'm not a Neanderthal, I'm not an early human being, I'm now a connected human. And what does that mean? Well, it means I've got the latest smartphone. So sorry, Hannah, it's a Pixel 5G, so it hits quite a lot of your buttons. I've also got Pixel Buds, so I no longer just type stuff. I speak to my computers, and I speak to them all the time. So if I was in the room to ask a Google question, my speakers would all start answering me. I've got Pixel 5G. That's connected to the cloud, and in the cloud I use Workplace, which is the latest Google ecosystem. I use bots, I use chat, I use integrated emails. So I have chat with my virtual assistant, and when we're in the chat room, I have a bot for my CRM system that chats with us. So that sort of happens. I'm on meets, on these sort of conference calls all the time, so about 5 or 6, even 7 or 8 a day. I tend to use Meet because that's integrated in my ecosystem. So in fact, what I see is that what I've actually got is I've now got an external brain. I'm connected to an external brain in the cloud. So I'm this connected human. I got my own brain, but empathetically, I'm connected to a brain in the cloud. And this brain in the cloud is our external hive brain. So this is the human beings reaching the next level of evolution. And it's this brain tool that's gone along with us. It's evolved. It evolves extremely rapidly. And we move from new versions of tech to later versions of tech, new technical ecosystems, but it all happens at a fantastically fast rate. So what does this mean now about technology? Well, this is where I'm going to do a little bit of an interesting one to try and match the two parts of my presentation together. So this is my first attempt at doing some coding live for you on the event. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a project. It's a project called Scratch Maths. So it's talking about maths in Scratch, using Scratch. And it's developed by UCL. Dame Celia is a good friend of mine, and she put this project together and is running Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 in quite a number of schools. So let me just move across to my, I'll come out of the big screen and move on to my, sorry, you're seeing some of the working here, but let me go up to the Scratch. So this is a little Scratch project. So I'm now in the Scratch editor. If I want to go and see inside, let's see inside the project. So here we are inside a Scratch project. So what I have here is, this is Scratch 3. So on the left-hand side, I've got all my blocks, and I pull the blocks and I connect them to make a program. So the block on the top left is the clears everything down. So it's like my initiation block. The blocks underneath are just standalone blocks. But what I can do with those is I can got a little bit of a lag on my mouse, but that's okay. So if I now stamp that and then turn it, so you see up in the top right, you can see a little picture emerging. So if I stamp that and then turn that, so you can see I'm starting to build up a picture in the top right. Okay, so that's the basics, fundamentals of Scratch. If I now clear it, so in other words, click the green button, and let's actually make our first program. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm getting a little bit of lag on the mouse and the cursor. So because I've got quite a lot of running on here, but rather than make the program. Accept from me that what you do is you go to the left, you pick up the Lego block, you move it across, you put it into a program, and they clip together just like Lego pieces. So what I can then do is if I go to this bit here, this little program in the center here, so I've got when spacebar keyed, proceed, repeat 30 times, move 10 steps, in between each step, stamp, turn 15 degrees, and then go around the loop again, and at the end say all done. So if that's the program, and I now try and do this, I'll take this up to full screen. Let's make sure. So I've got all the text not working too well because I've got a jittery mouse. But so here I am. This is now the big screen. If I now press the button, space key to go, I've got my program to go. If I do that, I've created a pattern. So if what I wanted to try and show you there was that by doing that, if you look at that little program, how many lines of code are in that program? 7. So many years on from when I did the very first programming in 1972, it took me 48 hours to create and run 6 lines of code. I did that here in 2 minutes. So that is the difference that's in what we're seeing that's happened in such an amazing time frame. So let's go back to the presentation. Here we go. So, and we'll go back to the present. So I thought about maybe doing some other presentations, and I could do them, but that was taking too much of a risk. I've done my one bit where I've performed without a safety net, and it seems to have worked. So I'm really pleased with that. So this is the Scratch Math. So it's showing that computing is not just computing, but you use computing in everything. You use it in maths, you use it in science. If you're a policeman, you've got a camera on your chest, you're speaking on a telephone, everybody uses tech. Everybody uses computers these days. So it's a life skill. When I start talking to kids, this is the structures that exist at the moment. So there is now a thing that came in about 4 years ago, a national curriculum for computer science, or the computing sciences. And the national curriculum has got 3 elements in it. So it's got computer science, information technology, and digital literacy. And you can take exams in all of these up to O-level standard, and then you can do A-levels beyond that. And the national curriculum now requires that schools provide computing at 4 levels, at Key Stage 1 and 2 in primary schools, Key Stage 3 and 4 at secondary schools up to GCSE, and then A-level. And the concept is well developed. The curriculum is there. It's been there for a while. And there's now a lot of companies or a lot of organizations that put together a scheme of work to actually support these activities. And just to show you a bit more on the curriculum part, I've pulled out just the 2 statements for Key Stage 1 and 2, which are the areas I'm most involved in. But Key Stage 1, all it says is it's just 3 bullet points. So you've got to understand, so Key Stage 1 at primary school, understand what algorithms are, how they implemented as programs on digital devices, and what programs execute by following precise and unambiguous instructions. Create and debug simple programs, use logical reasoning to predict the behavior of simple programs. So that's the Key Stage 1 activity. And a lot of schools have taken that as a very limited implementation, but it's actually got to be a lot more full-bodied. That's not that some schools do this, but they do it at the minimum, not the maximum. Key Stage 2 gets a little bit more complicated. Design, write, and debug programs that accomplish specific goals. So designing, sequence selection, repetition, logical reasoning for simple algorithms, logical reasoning to explain how some simple algorithms work, and how to detect and how results are selected and ranked. That sounds quite bland. And now that you've got schemes of work behind this, it looks on the face of it, when you look at the national curriculum, that you don't actually have to do any coding at all, But in reality now, there's tons of coding schemes that you can use, and it's really getting quite sophisticated. So to think that GCSE in computer science has no coding, it was the case, but now there's lots of coding behind it. So that's the national curriculum, and the same for 3 and 4, but I won't cover that at the moment. What you see also at schools, and they're becoming really good at this, they're using not just technical science, but social science behind programming logic. So they teach the social science bit, which is these pedagogies. So this is, how do you describe and teach youngsters? Peda being youngsters, and goji is the methodology for doing it. There's another methodology, and you don't hear too much about it. It's androgyny, and that's how do you train adults to do this? I'll get onto that in a second. But the sort of things in the pedagogy are things like PRIM, which is a methodology: predict, run, investigate, modify, and make. The semantic wave, which is how you actually structure a lesson plan. You start at the high level, you work down, you've got some low level stuff, you then come back up, and you make sure that wave fits the learning environment that the kids are in. Cognitive load, making sure you don't overload the children with too much knowledge in one session. You build the knowledge over a number of sessions. You think about computational thinking. How do you get into that? And then a lot of it is unplugged. So it's computing without a computer. So Hannah would think this is actually a very environmental thing, because you're not using any tech, no electricity, no screens or anything. But unplugged is really good because it gets people to think about computing in a practical way, a non-technical way, and that's quite important. So a lot of stuff on pedagogy. My task as a subject matter expert is not to teach kids, but is to teach the teachers. So I actually need andragogy, and there's no methodologies for that. So we're inventing stuff. How do we engage teachers who are time poor, who are being asked to do something they've not done before, and have still got to, again, do that because they've then got to teach the kids? It's tough. It's really tough. I thought you'd be really interested in this. This is the way that things are going. This is quite a hot topic at the moment. One of the big issues, the massive issues actually within education, is that youngsters have got to go from, they start off in block programming, and the normal one for that, or the best one probably is Scratch. And at the end of their education, they've got to have moved over to syntactic programming. And the example mostly used on that is Python. So they've got to make this transition from blocks, Lego, to Python, which is syntactic and scripted, and every comma counts, every colon counts, the indents count, everything like that. So how do you make that transition? Well, the thinking now is that you don't make the transition. What you do is you use both. You use both block programming and syntactic. And there's a really good tool that I've been playing with recently, and it's really been transformational for me. Is a tool called EduBlocks. So this is EduBlocks in the middle. So EduBlocks is like Scratch. So if you're familiar with Scratch and blocks, then you'd be familiar with EduBlocks. But the text on the blocks is Python in Pythonish language. And in EduBlocks, I can simply press a button to see the equivalent Python. So I can jump from blocks to Python easily in that way. Unfortunately, at the moment, I still can't jump back. So if I do my EduBlocks in blocks, I jump to Python, I then see something that I can't do in blocks. So I do something in Python, I can't go back to blocks. So that's the only disadvantage at the moment. But EduBlocks is a fantastic tool, and I really would recommend you to have a look at it, because when you're dealing with blocks, you can also talk a lot about the methodology or the algorithm. It's far better to understand the algorithm in Scratch type blocks than in text, which is undecipherable unless you're an expert in that particular coding language. So big stuff happening in this area. The other thing we're doing with kids is this is more Code Club now, but I'm applying this to my education side as well. So in the Coder Dojo, we've been running machine learning for kids. So this is creating neural networks. So very much the brain part. So coding is now about training or creating neural networks, about training data for neural networks. And then the way we do it with the children is we use products like machine learning for kids, where we build the algorithm into Scratch blocks type programs. So in this one here, you type something in the bottom bit, you've trained the algorithm, you type something in text, anything in the line, and it will, depending on what you type in it, it will turn the fan on or it will turn the light on. So you can use text, you can use speech, we'd be doing speech, you can use images, you can use video to actually drive your tech. And we've been doing that with 7 to 12-year-olds in Coder Dojo. What we've also been doing in Coder Dojo is we've been using a thing called BlocksCAD. BlocksCAD's really cool. So again, it's using block programming language on the left. And again, there's a high-level language behind that to create 3D objects. So the 3D object here is something that I designed at the beginning of the week. So this is a Starship SN8. So Starship SN8, as you probably know, is doing its first 15-kilometer hop tonight in the States. So it's live. And this new SN8 Starship, what I did was I got the kids to, the target is, I drafted this. There's lots of bugs in it. You can probably see on the fin at the back, there's a line. It's not ready to scale. There's a few problems with it. So I shared this with the 24 kids in our Coder Dojo, and I've asked them to send me their fixes for the bugs so I can 3D print the object on Saturday. I've already had lots of submissions where they're actually telling me how I got it wrong and how I should fix it. So I've now got an updated version ready for that looks more like a Starship SN8 and is ready for 3D printing on Saturday. So the sort of things we've built is we've done, all the children have done 3D bugs, top left, 3D printed, and they've got certificates that they managed to do that. They've all built Saturn V rockets from first principles. And I'm doing a project this week, which is the new Mars rover that's going to be landing in Mars in February. I've now got a project to design and build one of those as well and build it. So we're going to be doing that. So 3D printing is a big thing. And finally, the final one I was going to show you was drone blocks. So you probably know that I'm a qualified drone pilot. I love drones, but the rules around flying drones are too hard, too tough at the moment. So I found this for my youngsters is a thing called drone blocks. So I did a computing at school seminar for some school teachers. I got a guy from Newcastle area to join me, Neil. He came on the call. I explained to teachers how to use drone blocks within their school. He went away and did it. So this is his program that he wrote. So this was for his drone. It was how to set the initialization to do loops. I got to your right, your left, set yaw to, if counter, then go flip forward, flip back. So he designed this program and then he sent it to me. And if I move forward to the next one. So I'm now going to attempt another first, which is my first video on this channel. So if I now set the video going.
So turn 90 degrees to the right, and then 90 degrees back again, and then flip kind of towards you a little bit. And then it'll do it 180. So 180 degrees to the right, 180 degrees to the left, and then flip again. And then it increases it again a little bit more, so it's 270 this time. It shouldn't get it. So it'll go all the way around and then all the way back. and then I'll do a backflip and then I'll allow. I should fix that for them to do.
Okay, easy.
About 80 grams.
So let me just, sorry, didn't mean to do that, sorry. Okay, so let's move forward. So I hope you're still with me. I hope I haven't lost you. Let's move on to the final slide. So I thought, so you can see Neil was doing a, come on, let's go. Sorry. There we go, that's it. So I hope you found that interesting. I clearly I'll be open for questions afterwards. What I'm looking for really is if you can help me. So what I'm looking to do is to try and promote our Peterborough Coder Dojo. So we have a Facebook page, and I'll show you the link to that. And we're looking to try and promote that to get new members on board. I want to advocate for good computing education at your children's schools. So I want you to try and help me promote the Peterborough Computing at School community to teachers. And I want you to follow my Teaching Computer Science YouTube channel, which I've now got up and working. Help me promote my Enterprise Advisor content, which is my brand new YouTube channel. This is to try and get companies involved with schools to help children work out the career direction. And as you can see, with technology changing so quickly, the schools are really needing this, but that whole area has sort of collapsed during lockdown. So I want to do it using remote education. So I'm wanting companies through DPiP help me promote STEM careers to students using video, YouTube, and conversations on YouTube and content on YouTube. So that's what I'm looking to try and do. In this presentation as well, I've also added some interesting, useful links. There's some stuff about YouTube. There's a really good one from the guy who started the National Centre for Computing Education, which is a fantastic YouTube video. I would highly recommend that. And that's about it. It's hot off the press, but what we're going to be doing with the kids for in Coder Dojo before the end of term for Christmas is they're going to build a snowman, and there's a prototype of what we're going to be teaching them to do. And the best snowman is probably going to win a 3D printed model of that snowman. So that's my presentation. Let me come back to.
Brilliant. Thank you, Richard.
That's really good, Richard.
I hope it worked. I was just relying and hoping that
Yeah, no, it worked a treat.
all the stuff was working. But
I think we've just witnessed the onset of Terminator 2.
That drone was scary.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time before they get their own minds and take over.
But it's having the confidence. I mean, it's like me. I'm 65 and I'm moving into education, and all the tech is really, it's concerning. You know, you're worrying about, am I doing it right? I've never presented. Like, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen? So you muck up, and that's the same when we do Coder Dojo. We're doing it remotely with the kids, and we're saying it's natural. Your code is not going to work.
No.
You're going to have bugs. The skill of the programmer is how to overcome the barriers that are in front of you. How do you treat yourself?
I thought it was quite genius that you were passing it back to the kids and telling them asking them how to fix the issues, because then they're getting then some error fixing experience then, aren't they? It's not just going to be a frustration if they're not working straight away.
Well, the thing is, and it's a bit of a secret, but the volunteers in Coder Dojo, we learn so much from the kids.
No doubt. Absolutely.
We're on a rapid learning curve on all our sessions from what happens in the session. They think that we're experts, but we're not. They're the experts. We're just going to get them to articulate it.
I'm just the same when we do the Lego League. It never ceases to amaze me how much those kids can teach you. It's really good. So yeah, Tony says, how much does teaching tools and techniques would work with adult learners, or are our brains wired differently?
I don't think I don't think our brains are wired differently. I think it's our experience is different. And I think that's what we're seeing with the teachers. The teachers have a specific way of working. They've been in that industry for a long time. They've gone through a teacher training syllabus. They've gone through a way of creating content. And how do you get them to move? And you've got to get them to move because you've got to convert them to the latest things that are happening. They're fine with it, fine with the idea of teaching people a syllabus that was developed 5 years ago. But actually, the new syllabus should be a lot different to what it was 5 years ago. So the education system is being disrupted massively. They don't know they're being disrupted, but they're being disrupted. It's no longer someone standing in front of a class. It's now someone standing behind the class, helping them to find a way to the right stuff and directing them. And for teachers, that is brand new. They're not used to that. So they've got to deal with that disruption that's happened in a lot of our industries already, but they've not seen any of it yet. They see themselves as protected, so they're not willing to change. Or they're not.
I was going to say, why can't we circumnavigate the teachers and get people like you and even kids that know it straight off to go in and teach the class? And why do we put the pressure on the teachers to change their
Well, that's what I'm doing at the moment. So I'm quite unusual. I think it's my Code Club training and Code Dojo training has allowed me to do it. But I'm now recognized as somebody who teaches teachers. So I'm an associate CPD facilitator. So I'm qualified now to go into schools and teach teachers what to do. And I've also done my off my own back. I've done a thing called the Computer Science Accelerator, which is a completely online training, which I haven't done the exam yet. I'm shying away from that. I've done all the content, but I'm now effectively qualified to go in and teach computer science at GCSE level in secondary schools. And for the teachers, that's a bit of a shock. They don't like that. They think, a guy in the industry, you've not done CPD before. I said, well, I've been doing CPD all my career. And you haven't done any online stuff. I said, I've been doing online stuff all my career. I haven't taught kids, and I don't want to diminish teachers because that skill is really good. I couldn't do that. I really couldn't. Little Johnny, he's fallen over, he's been bullied.
Absolutely, yeah. You don't want to take away their job.
Being a referee in a classroom and getting kids to concentrate on stuff, that I could not do that for the world, but I could help them with teaching. I'm a STEM ambassador. I go into schools. I've been doing that. I'm a barefoot ambassador, so I'm now doing that as well with online stuff. I'm in the CAS community. I've set up these CAS communities in Huntingdon, Peterborough, and Norfolk. So I'm getting quite engaged with that. And I'm also really lucky to be involved with all the subject matter experts in the country, and I know them really well. So, and the research people doing the stuff on, so I'm well linked in, and I'm really.
And you're finding the teachers are more open to it and actually embracing it as opposed to stepping back and going, "Ooh, what you on about? We don't need that."
Some of the younger teachers have got it. Some of the more established teachers think it will undermine them. I think teachers generally have. The thing I've suffered with, through no fault of mine, I don't think, but I got signed up for this as an SME, a computer science SME in February. So my plan was it was going to be Norfolk, and I love Norfolk. I love North Norfolk. So I thought, I'm going to get in my car. I'm going to wander up to the beaches in Holcombe and Thornham and Munsley, and I'm going to go and see a couple of schools, drop in on them, say hello, spend the rest of the day on the beach with my wife and my dog. What a lifestyle. So I'll be seeing 150 schools. So I'll be traveling around at the taxpayer's expense. Day one, we went into lockdown. I've yet to physically see a teacher face to face. I've yet to see the people I'm working for face to face.
Yeah.
And getting into schools is horrendous because no one's there. They're all on lockdown.
No, it's hard. You can understand that it's hard for anyone to get in touch with the school that is outside the remit. Obviously, without the rightful checks and stuff, who's trying to get involved with them. But hopefully they're opening up more. Like Tony said, it's the kids seem more open to this kind of learning, don't they? That they're not set on a rigid learning path to go from A to B. They're actually getting more open to other areas of learning, which is good.
I think that some of the things I'm saying is that the schools is all about year groups and all about learning year by year. So the progression is an annual progression, and you teach certain things in certain years. I think that's all thrown to the birds now, because I've got youngsters in Code Club, Code Dojo. We do 7 to 12. So we've got 7-year-olds that can do machine learning, can do 3D printing and 3D modeling and AI. They don't do that at school until 6th form.
No.
So suddenly we've got really capable kids who are able to do this stuff a lot earlier than the schools are able to support. And that's for a teacher, that's highly disruptive as well. So they maybe do a Scratch project, and one of the kids in the class has done Python to a really high level and knows the stuff inside out. So they become the teacher's helper, but it's not doing them any good. They should be moving on. So this rigid real year group thing is not any good for youngsters.
It's actually not enough hours in the day. They've got so many subjects to learn that they can't fit in any.
The workload is horrendous. The teacher's workload is horrendous.
Absolutely.
Lockdown. We have the remote teaching. So there's 3 levels of remote teaching. I don't know whether people have heard, but there's synchronous. So no, there's asynchronous. So in other words, teachers send work home, the kids work on the work and send it back. So it's a bit like sending packages back and forward. So that's asynchronous. Synchronous is where the teacher stands in front of the class, like you and Joff are doing here. You're standing in front of a group of people controlling it, leading it. And then the third one is blended. And blended is where you have the mixture of online and physical. And I believe my big passion will be for Peterborough post-lockdown in the libraries is that we can actually have an online session on Coda Dojo, controlled online, massive, big session. But we also have in libraries, all the libraries in Peterborough, a library supervisor with a library kit with about maybe 2 or 3 kids and maybe a volunteer as well in there. So we actually have all the libraries in Peterborough online at 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. And we actually start engaging with the kids who are disadvantaged, the digitally disadvantaged. They have access, and the libraries really need to be places of learning digital, not just reading books, because you can't even get a book because they're all COVID infected. So change the whole system and move it forward.
Well, I suppose in a good way, this whole lockdown thing has proven that online sessions, online meets are doable. Granted, they're probably not doing the carbon footprint any good. Sorry, Hannah. But yeah, it seems like it's a doable thing what we're doing, and hopefully it won't last too long, because you can't beat face-to-face learning, can you, in front of a screen, really?
Well, I think Hannah's thing on carbon neutral, I thought about it a bit, but I hadn't really quite considered it. I think it's about how quickly things change in our industry. So you have a major transformation every couple of years, and you have several changes within that.
Oh, so yeah.
Keeping up with the environment is hard.
Absolutely.
What we're now seeing with COVID is it used to be the 4th Industrial Revolution. We now have the 4th Industrial Revolution, which is actually no longer the 4th Industrial Revolution. We're probably about 6 or 7. Alongside that, we've got the climate emergency. And alongside that, we've got Brexit type things. So we've actually moved Revolution 4 to now something completely different. So this new connected human beings has moved to the next level, and it will have an impact on climate. So I haven't traveled into London since March. I've only done one business trip, since March. I work from home. So yes, I'm using electricity at home, but I'm not using the car. I'm not using petrol. I'm not using the train. I'm not using an office in London or an office in Peterborough. So my carbon stuff has slewed a bit, and I don't know what the effect of that slew is, but I think, I may be wrong, but I think I'm a better person in terms of my carbon neutrality for doing it.
Yeah.
In a fairly big way. But I don't know the detail of it. That's a bit
No, it's something you can't quite measure, isn't it, quite yet, I suppose. But yeah, it's interesting to see how technology has come on. I was talking to Kev Lawrence on the radio about the STEM festival once, and I just mentioned that when I was at college, that we only had computer day once a month, once a week, and we had to go into a computer room and share it. We weren't actually sat in front of a computer at all. And he kind of it was kind of query from him to say, what? Really? I was like, yeah, it's only like 20 years, 30 years ago that we had to go into a room.
So the thing that I find really strange is that even on this COVID emergency, I now use the COVID app on my phone, and I use Bluetooth, and I know people don't use it, and QR codes, so I do all that sort of stuff, and I think that's really powerful. So I've been dumped a bit by the government because they don't quite understand it. But isn't it strange that my grandson now has gone to secondary school, Austin? I mean, you probably know Austin.
Yeah.
He's got a mobile phone. Everybody in his class has a mobile phone, but they're not allowed to put the COVID app on. How stupid is that? Why do they not have the QR code in every classroom? Why do they not have the COVID app on everybody's phone? Why are the kids not self-protecting themselves in that environment? The phone is not just a phone. It's not just a computer. It's a way of protecting yourself against COVID and protecting other people.
Yeah, very strange. I've got a question from Tony just before you need to drop off. Hang around, Tony. We'll get your question answered. He says, is there any evidence that the computer curriculum is starting to fill the UK skills gap?
I believe in what they're doing, and if you listen to the NCCE video, I haven't played it, but it's in my links. That's a really good one. That explains it at a really high level how important it is. But my issue really is that the skills that we need as a country have changed. So I'm trying to, and what I'm trying to do with the skills service and my other website is to try and teach schools about how industry is changing. So we're moving away from, if you're going to grow up and you're going to be a bus driver, a taxi driver, a train driver, forget it. That's not going to happen because it's all going to be autonomous. If you're going to be a shopkeeper and you're going to be in retail, that's not going to happen. You just got to look at all the closures over the last couple of days. If you want to move into medical, you've got to be technical. If you want to move into manufacturing, you've got to be technical. You can be a technical at a technician level, but my advice to kids is aim higher than that. Aim to be a professional engineer or a professional scientist. And those are the jobs that will really do well under the fourth industrial revolution. There'll be a massive number of people who will be pulled back. So you'll actually have the government will pay you a minimum amount, a living wage, to be in the society. But the people actually making the society will be a small cadre of scientists and engineers, professional scientists and engineers. So if a kid's going to be successful, they've got to aim to be a technician, qualified, or they've got to aim even further than that to be a professional engineer. So you're now defining the next wave of development. So any kid that's not thinking about being a technician or a professional engineer are missing a big trick, because the thing we're really short of in medical, in manufacturing, in digital are the technician skills. So these are not people who are inventing new things, but they're people forcing you to use the existing things well. If you can become a good technician, you can move on to becoming a good engineer or a good scientist. But really, how do you pull people into that? So it's not about whether we've got a skills gap. We've got a different skills gap moving forward. The people that thought they were on a winner, even teachers like we know them today will not exist in 3 years' time. I guarantee. 2 years' time.
Wow, moving fast. And of course, you're missing the people that are picking up the skills from the already skilled, the passing down the skills with the generations.
We need to as well. I mean, I think the huge one is all the focus is on youngsters, and yes, they are the important part. They're going to be the next generation after that. But we must reskill our existing workforce. So people who are being made redundant from retail need to be retrained, People who are being made redundant from aviation need to be retrained. People who are being retrained from travel need to be retrained. Everybody needs to be retrained. It needs to be lifelong learning. Every 3 years, you need to requalify. You need to train yourself. And particularly at the latter end, the older people, there's so much skills in being a 65-year-old. There's so much skill of 65-year-olds and over. Why let them retire? We don't want to retire. We want to engage. Get them engaged, retrain them, bring their knowledge and skills and reapply it.
Well, they fetched a load out of retirement for COVID, didn't they? So clearly it's an area that they needed.
I think it brings me back to that caveman thing at the beginning. You can see how quickly over that time frame, 70,000 years, it's not a lot of time. No. My first time with a computer in 1972, where I am now, all of that is so condensed.
Yeah, it's very.
How can you tell someone what they're going to be when they grow up?
Yeah.
How can you confidently do that to a 7-year-old?
No.
It's impossible.
Hopefully then with the teachers involved, then it gets a bit more prevalent and forward.
Well, if they experience the problem themselves, and I think they're going to, then I think they'll understand the issue.
Do you want to ask your question, Jonathan?
Yeah, so it was kind of, as parents, how can we ensure that the schools are doing right by our children?
Okay, well, a teacher or a head teacher will tell you that they're doing the national curriculum, Key Stage 1 to Key Stage 4. And as you saw from what I told you, the Key Stage 1 is just 3 bullet points.
Yeah, it's almost kind of...
The syllabus, the curriculum is not what you're looking for. What you actually want to be saying is what statement or what practice are you using? What statement of work are you using? So are you using the Raspberry Pi curriculum? The Raspberry Pi curriculum is 900 pages of pre-worked out content, and that you can work through as a teacher. It's got all your lesson plans. It's got all the way you use it. It's got all the pedagogy inside it. So the Raspberry Pi Foundation's got 900 pages of syllabus. The Barefoot Computing has a similar amount. CAS Community has a similar amount. There's curriculum all over the place, and it's more important is your school using an approved course of work? And can you tell me what that is? Are your teachers qualified to do computer science? Have they done the online learning? Have they done the CPD? If they haven't, get Richard Wishart in to do a remote chat session with the kids or with the teachers, or get them to join in my Computing at Science community in Peterborough, where I'll bring people in to talk about what's happening, so they can talk to their peers and to people in industry about what is there. They can train themselves to become qualified to teach computing science. So that's the questions I would ask, Jonathan, is not just are you doing national curriculum because you'll get a bland yes or a bland no, or you get sort of yes. They'll fudge it with teacher speak. Get behind it, say what are you using to do it, because I want to see what you're doing and I want to be able to help my Austin or Barnaby when they're at home. I want to know what you're teaching them.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you for that, Richard.
Thank you.
Oh, I get a bit enthusiastic about it. I hope I didn't.
No, it's good to see passionate about it. Yeah, that's what we need. More people like that and passionate about anything like that, giving the message across. That's what it takes. So hopefully once this is all blown over, you can get into your schools and start plugging it.
Well, I really need your help as well, because as I say, I've set up Facebook pages and Facebook groups to run my thing. I need to get those working well to get the engagement from teachers. So my engagement bit has been poor. I'm not doing nearly as much engagement as I'm being asked to do, because no one's answering the phone, no one's answering the email, no one's on LinkedIn.
No.
They're not connected to my world, and I can't.
No. We're a connected world, but we're just not connected talking. That's the problem.
Not connected.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll certainly see what we can do with the socials and spreading the message and our contacts and whatever. No problem. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you to Richard. Is Hannah still around?
Possibly, not sure yet.
Yeah. Big thank you to Dan in the background pulling all the strings. There's
Hannah
Hannah
still
there.
here.
Hi, Hannah. Hello, Hannah. Thank you for your talk. Anything you want to say, Jonathan? Any closing notes?
No, I think that's kind of it in terms of the actual talk itself, or the talks themselves. Obviously, we're going to hang around for a bit, go into the social chat. So
Yeah,
please
we'll go over the
find us
social tables for a chat.
just down there.
Thank you to Hannah and Richard. Those that, again, are always enlightening talks we have. I mean, some of the things you guys don't know, obviously, until you hear about them. And you're so blind to some things unless it's obvious. It's good to hear about them. And it's people like Hannah and Richard that are advocating it and pushing it forward. And we encourage anyone who's got anything good to say or a point to get across or a passion they want to share about the digital community, get in touch and do a little talk for us. It's much appreciated.
Yeah, we're obviously always looking for talks into 2021. So
we'll see how long we go digitally for, and so it's a bit easier to go digitally. You can grab a cup of tea and sit in your lounge and comfy chair listening. So
I quite like it at the moment.
Yeah, you're only dressed halfway, aren't you?
I know. Yeah.
Like most of us. I've only tidied up behind me. The whole place is a mess. Anyway, well, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan. Much appreciated, Dan, in the background there, pulling the strings at Big Orange Hearts. Don't forget to check out wordfest.live, which is on the screen now. Sponsorship packages are available still, and keep an eye on their new speaker lineup. And we shall see you next month. Happy Christmas, everyone. Have a safe Christmas and New Year. Hopefully it's going to be less awkward for everyone. And we'll see how it goes, and we'll hopefully see you in January. Yeah. So on that note,
you can do your dance. Yeah.
Not tonight. I've got a bad foot, so best not sign off with my singing number. I don't think the world's ready for anything like that.
No, absolutely.
We'll see you over at the chat tables in a sec. Thanks for coming.
And thanks so much. Bye.
Cheers all.